This video is brought to you by ASIP12 Productions. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to enjoy the videos. Also, please try and comment and rate the videos. Thank you. We like to prefix them with F, because that shows they're a floating point number. So F, F1, I'll just call it, equals 5.78, whatever. And now the other type of float is called a double, and you can do F or D on this, doesn't matter too much, although generally people do D because floats and doubles are different. And you'll ask why, I'll tell you in a sec. Double 1 equals, and maybe you can see from what I do here. Okay, you can probably guess by now that, by the way, this is just some random characters I typed in. Doubles have a larger maximum values they can take. That doesn't really make larger maximum values. Basically, floats, okay, well, we'll start with ints. Ints can carry the most numbers. This is hard to say it. Basically, all these variables are stored as bits, and ints can store the most bits. Floats can store the third most bits out of the number type variables, and double is just a bigger float. Okay, it can just store more decimal places. That's all a double is. Although really, in a small program, you don't really need to worry about this. You don't think, okay, I'm gonna have a small float. I'm gonna use a float variable rather than a double variable. Because I tested this out actually myself, and both of them go on for ages. You can have loads and loads and loads of decimal places in both floats and doubles. Seriously, I started copy and pasted hundreds of decimal places, literally. So that's one thing. But when you get to bigger programs, what you're going to start worrying about, because all these variables are stored in the RAM, okay? That's where all these variables are stored in. They're stored in the RAM of the PC. So if your PC has a low RAM, and this is where you start worrying about it, you've got a big project, you might want to think about whether you're using a float or a double, because double reserves more space than a float, and int, of course, because it can take the most bits, it reserves the most space. So you just want to be aware of that. And okay, now I've just covered that quickly, let's move on to the next type of variable. Okay, this is called a bool variable, or a boolean variable. Now, what is a boolean value? Well, a boolean value is basically just true or false. So bool, true, false, we'll call it. Oops, false equals true. Oops. And this is words, so you either have true or false, like that. As well as this, we can have bool, I'll just call it example, equals 0, and bool example 2 equals random number. Okay, so basically, the PC, remember, it stores everything as bits. So basically that means it has to store everything as numbers. So the PC stores this true-false value, which is false in the end, as a 0 value. So here, when I define and declare and define example, I'm declaring it with a false boolean value, because 0 is a false boolean value. That's what's really behind this keyword false. False is declared as a global variable. We'll go over those later in lots of files, I believe, as 0. So that's what false is. And here, when I declare example 2, I'm declaring it as a true value, because anything that isn't 0 is not false. So I could even have a minus number here, and this would still be true, okay? So long as it's not 0, it can contain zeros, it just can't be the actual number 0, then it will be true. even so, you don't generally declare, I mean, 0 and 1 binary numbers as on and off. You don't really declare Boolean values with 0 or 1, you declare them with true or false, because that makes some programmer coming in from somewhere else, it makes it easier for him to read, okay? So, and now we're going to move on to the final variable type we'll be covering today, and that is the char variable type. I'm not going to say char because it just sounds stupid, so I'll say char. So the char variable type can contain any one of any ASCII character. So it can contain a lot of things, basically, almost any character on your keyboard. So I'll just call this char1 equals, and then we have to declare this with single quotes, and I'm just going to say M, for instance, and so that's all that really carries. You may be wondering where this is useful, and I'll just give a simple example. Basically, when you make games, at the end, if someone loses or wins, you might want to ask them, do you want to continue? And you'd basically store their answer as a char variable. You'd ask them, do you want to continue, y/n? And that y/n would be a char variable, wouldn't it? Because this only carries one character. You wouldn't use a string variable for something that only needs to carry one character, because again, char variables reserve less space than string variables because they only need to reserve space for one character. Now the more advanced answer to where we'd use this is, we're not going to go over this for quite a while, but when you create a tic-tac-toe board, you've got the single character places, like it's either an empty space, an X, or an O. So basically you can have okay, I'm not going to go over that, but basically you can use it for that example. Now anyway, this basically brings an end. Although one thing I want to go over quickly is, remember I talked about in the previous thing when I said cout statements are extremely flexible and that you can output variable names in cout statements. Well, I'm just going to show that as an example. So here I'll do it in sections. I'll output the ints first. So, and by the way, generally when you declare a variable, it's a very good idea to define it as either 0 or null. Okay, null is just a keyword for 0. If you declare something as 0, so for instance I could declare this as